Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today, we're bringing back the podcast on the BLN channel. We used to do weekly podcasts a long time ago. However, War of Rights doesn't really change a whole lot from week to week, so we're going to probably do monthly podcasts for now. And if we need to do more, we'll go back to weekly or bi weekly. And if not, we'll stay at a month. We'll see how it goes. It's going to be great regardless. I appreciate everyone being here tonight. If you would like to support the channel, please like, comment, share, subscribe. You can also check out the description to join our Patreon, which has live streams of all the broadcasts we do. You can advertise the regiment on the bottom of our videos and get raw gameplay footage of all the events we do with no commentary and UI. You can also join our Discord and check out our merch. And I'd like to thank everyone who is here to talk about War of Rights and more. So let's go through and introduce everybody. If you would like to know more about the person or join their Discord or whatever, they will have a link in the description. So check it out there. So let's go through with everyone. So first we got Bones. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, glad to be here. It's the first Iron Bones with the Iron Brigade, 15th Wisconsin. You may see me in pubs, you may see me in Blue and Gray or Grand Campaign, but here to talk about war of rights and enjoy the game.
Thank you for being here. We got Cloud.
Yeah, what's up, Cloud? Used to have some different unit tags on, but rocking with the AMV now, part of their CAV unit.
Heck yeah. We got Ambush.
Hey, I'm Ambush. I'm from Ninth Corps. I'm a corporal in the Clark's Battery.
Appreciate you being here. We got Podrosad.
Well, I'm Potter Zod. I'm part of Conquest Brigade, and I'm a first sergeant.
Thanks for being here. And then we got McPhail in the driving truck.
Yeah, I'm driving right now, so sorry for the audio quality. Part of 5th NC, part of Sussy Brigade, so, Sussy now, Sussy forever. Let's go.
I haven't heard that quote in a long time, but yeah, let's get cooking. So, the general concept for this podcast is going to be talking about the recent meta changes. Recent being probably a couple months, talking about flag changes, ticket decreases per death, and the increase in server pop, how it's changed the ever changing battlefield. So, yeah, um, with that being said, let's get going. So, the three biggest things with meta changes as of late, as I just mentioned, flag bearers, they've gone from 10-second spawn in per person to 5 seconds. We have the increase to 350 player servers, going to probably go to 400 very soon. They've been testing that for a couple years now, it seems. And then because of the flag bearer change, they also made a change where each death was worth 20% less tickets overall. So a lot of these changes, at least for me, what I've seen from the sky is when you get these higher 350 man servers, a lot of these smaller to medium sized skirmish maps, the attackers can't really maneuver anymore. Most matches, regardless of how dominant a team is, goes to like final push last stand, with the exception of big maps like Colquitt's Defense, where teams can still maneuver. And on top of that, you have maps like Hill's Counterattack, where the point favors the attackers a lot. A lot of these changes I think are good for Conquest and contention, but we got a lot to talk about. So I guess, does anyone want to give their thoughts about meta changes as of late?
Yeah,
I think you nailed it on. I think you nailed it on the head with the server pop has gone up a few times now. We know what that's going to do. It's going to make it easier for the defenders to defend, especially on the smaller maps, like you said. Roulette lane's a perfect example. If the Union can guard that entire stone wall and the fence, then the CSA can't really find a hole, and they basically have to charge a defended position every time.
Bones,
I'm
Cloud.
personally, I'm personally really excited with the 5 second option because we know we have a lot of old heads that have been playing the game for 2 3 years and they're going to stick around for a long while, but over time you're going to see that number burn out if we don't get new people in. And one of the biggest issues you see with getting new people in, especially when you're playing in pubs, is the sometimes you'll be waiting around. Sometimes the action isn't instant. Sometimes you're waiting 20 seconds, 30 seconds to respawn. And with the 5 second change, in pubs at least, it gets people back into the action more. And if people aren't, super psyched about it, that's fine. They made it a tool in your personal servers, your personal like regimental play. You can pick 5 or 10. It gives you more. I like it because it gives you more tools to change up the game, change up the setting, change how everything plays out, but it keeps new people engaged. I really like that.
Yeah, I think.
So,
Oh, go
yeah, go
ahead.
ahead. Anyways, to add on to your point, yeah, I think it's great to keep people into the game, but I also think that pub servers have become a lot more chaotic lately, because with this new 5 second respawn and 20% less counting to the deaths of the tickets, I think people they they sort of like value how do you say their life a little less, so therefore they go more their own way of how to play
Hmm.
the game. Like for example, now that there's a lot more new players and a lot more new people, pub servers have become a lot more chaotic. I mean, I was playing around just today, and there was like what 50, 50 new players on Union side, and we were just scattered around like a bunch of ants, getting pummeled by Reb artillery and just getting fucking pummeled by volley fire.
Yeah, I mean there is a danger to the faster respawn because faster you respawn, more likely you're gonna lose tickets when you stay in the fight. With the 10 seconds, you saw a lot more huddled together, retreating when need be, reforming when need be. But with the 5 second respawn, you can stay in the fight longer. You can reform more easily out in the field. As long as you got a little bit of cover, rocks, trees, and I understand. I understand that the pubs are chaotic, but I like that energy. I like the energy it brings. It gets people. You remember that. You remember the chaos. As long as it's good chaos. I understand some people are gonna Rambo, but I think that kind of lines up with the same point that people have talked about for years is knowing when you make your shot. Everybody says hit marker. I want a hit marker, or I want to know what my kills were. But when you introduced factors like that, then you got people wanting to ramble. You got people more worried about what they're doing than what they're doing as a team. It's probably hard to um, incorporate the changes in pubs for now. I mean, but it's all situational. I was playing pubs 2 3 nights ago, and I had 50 something people around me, and it was chaotic, but the energy was there, and everybody was having a good time, and that's what I love. That's what I like.
And
Yeah,
with that point, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was
Wow.
just yeah, I think the overall increase in the server size plus the flag uh spawn, being quicker than it used to be, just like it adds to the overall like just immersion of the events, which I know that's kind of like a goofy term that people like to joke about, but like the immersion, like the atmosphere, just having a full, compared to what it was 3 years ago when it was 75 on each side to now it's 175 on each side. I mean, it makes just for some really like wild moments on maps that you wouldn't get on like the smaller servers that it used to. And when it comes to the flags, you'll just I've seen it change up tactics a lot more when it comes to uh attacking teams. You'll see them stay in the fight a lot longer instead of falling back after that first you know big chunk of their guys gets knocked out. Because you
Hmm.
can, I mean, you can refill those numbers. 20 seconds as long as you just are in some decent cover. Um, and I think it honestly has made the whoever is the flag bearer a little bit more important to the game instead of it kind of being an afterthought of, oh, you're just the respawn guy. Uh, if if you don't know what you're doing and you get your flag lost in a charge, or you die out of line for some reason with it and get it lost and you can't recover it, like it becomes a real detriment to whatever company that is. That's 30, 40 guys that can't respawn out in the fight. They got to go all the way back to their spawn and take like a minute or two to run back in.
And to add on to Bones' point, I think that I completely agree with him. Yeah, the energy is still there, and I think pubs is really a place to, show more relaxed, more, show the more fun side of the community. And I think that if you want to be more serious about it, you join a reg. It's simple as that. And as for Cloud with the change in tactics, I think there's a big major change in tactics because now there are more frequent charges. People are less conservative about their tickets
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, big. That's big time.
for sure. There are a lot more
Yep.
charges. Artillery becomes, I wouldn't say becomes less useful, but it
Well,
doesn't become as pivotal. Sorry.
yeah. Well, that's an interesting point because usually in a battle, uh, especially like in big events, as soon as there's a big charge going on, artillery usually stops until the charge ends. So with these like lower respawn times and more frequent charges, uh, it'll be harder for artillery to actually do something and try not to TK its own, team.
Yeah, I've seen the artillery. It doesn't seem like it does as much ticket damage as it used to with
Yeah.
this update.
I,
I don't know if it's due to the fact of like Eagle's point of they lowered the ticket value by 20%, or people are just trying to stay more in formation. I
I
think
think
it's more of a, instead of it being like a ticket deficit, it's more of like a morale kind of thing. Like you watching everybody around you die, you're gonna tell your officer, "Hey, we need to move. We don't need to just keep standing here," kind of thing.
yeah.
Right.
Um,
And
I,
I,
yeah. Go
I
ahead.
think someone earlier mentioned that on some of these defense maps, with the larger groups and the faster respawns, it's easier for them to just sit there and repel. Well, I think that's where the arty comes in. Like, yeah, I've also heard some people talking recently about how arty is not as pivotal as it was, but I think it's just a like we're here to talk about is a change in the meta. I mean, Artie just needs to find his new fit with all these new people. And another
But
thing I wanted to say about what Cloud mentioned earlier before we continue on this is he was talking about, with these new flag respawns, people can stay in the fight longer. Like you got to think about it. If your volley is not hitting at least 5 people in the line, and they've got those 5 people are going to come back before your next volley pops off because the reload's 24 seconds, 25 seconds unless you got shards. So it's just the whole meta is going to change. It's going to take time for everybody to adapt. It's easier for the infantry because we're the majority of the fight. I think Artie's gonna come back later on. Like once we find where it fits, where it's needed, and I
well,
think
I think
it's
I
I
think
don't think
another
so.
problem. I think another problem with Artie is I'm seeing actually from whenever I joined to nowadays, I think there's less guns being used. I feel like that's also another problem. There's less guns being used in events because there's just less people. And not only that, the frequent charges make it impossible to get like a
could
big hit unless
could
it's in
I
the
add
open
something
right
to
in
that
front of
point?
you. Yep.
I think it's also because arty is more seen as an afterthought, as more of support to infantry rather than its own pivotal thing, which I think uh, gives a major problem to arty itself because there are people out there that solely play the game for arty, but most people don't put it into consideration, even though it is quite a pivotal thing. And with this update, I think it's gonna start to become even more of an afterthought to most people in War of Rights. And Ambush, on your previous point with like RDTKing with charges, I just wanted to bring something up. Do you know somebody of the name Captain Shifty? Since you're ninth Corps,
Yeah, I think so.
so I'm pretty sure that you know how he DK'd a bunch of you as Artie in one of
Yeah,
the events.
yeah.
I just wanted to bring it up. It's quite
But
funny.
like, yeah, but I mean, I mostly join an event whenever, I got a gun or something like that. And you always have that moment where you just hear command say, "All right, Artie, stop firing. We got a charge coming in, or we're charging right now. We don't want any TKs." And then you'll have that one guy who will shoot during the charge and then get like 20 TKs and just get banned immediately. Uh,
Yeah,
and I feel like that's gonna happen a lot more, and people are just gonna stop playing Artie because of it. Like I feel like there's gonna be an even bigger drop in Artie players because infantry is gonna get more chaotic.
well, it's just hard to quantify like the difference in, like, hey, let's put, 15. I mean, you've heard it in Eagles videos. Like people have got like 15, 20 guys on artillery. How are you really gonna justify doing that when those 15 to 20 guys that would be playing infantry would get way more ticket damage done for you.
I think
Yeah.
artillery in general is just nerfed with the update because right, everyone's spawning in quicker, which means artillery can't wipe a group of people. Not like they could before, but they definitely can't now. The ticket decrease per death means it's harder for them to deal tickets. When we have higher pop servers too, each ticket is worth less overall because if the ticket rate per death went down the same rate as on a high pop server as it did a low pop server, the low pop servers would take forever. So the more players you have in a server, tickets are worth or you get less tickets lost per death. So artillery is just not doing any damage at all. It's mostly a
I mean,
morale thing, knocking people down,
Mhm.
and area of denial is the biggest thing.
I
And I
mean, I
think
think.
sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say a lot of people get scared of artillery when they shouldn't. Red Mist most of the time is 1, 2, maybe 3 kills, at least in NA. In EU, I know artillery is much better because they play more double ranks and they're more close and don't
Yeah.
move as often. But that's besides the point.
Well, I think we're talking a lot about how there's going to be more charges, less things for RD, but I feel like maybe this will maybe force people in RD to discover something against charges, which you can always shoot into a blob that's charging in the open. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's basically going to be the pivotal moments of RD now, instead of just shooting a line. Um, on point too. On point is often where RD nowadays gets really important, is whenever they bombard point while they're capping. But other than that, I think it's more steering away the, destroying lines and more getting towards the shooting and charges and stuff like that, even though it gets pretty risky sometimes. And I think that's where RD players are going to start changing and developing, working a bit more on their aim. And yeah.
I think
Well, and
Fail, did you
that's
want to say something?
Well,
I think you said mostly what I was gonna say, Eagle, just about like artillery used to be before a charge. You'd say in the Steam chat like, "Hey, already hit them right before we're about to charge." But now, if they do that, by the time you get there with the charge, they've already got their guys spawned in, so it makes it even weaker in that regard. But then, I was gonna say like maybe an update then is they could make canister actually be a lot more effective, and then we might see artillerymen, bringing those cannons up onto the lines and then maybe wipe a whole charge with like a couple shots or something.
They got double, triple
um,
canister now, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
I've
Well,
seen it work
mm,
once and it was a beautiful thing.
Well, here's one thing about bringing cannons up, and I always try to do it almost every battle whenever we start running out of ammo with double canister. But I feel like we said before, arty is now more like an afterthought, and
mm,
there's these maps like Pry Forward where we just get, especially I'm talking Union arty, uh, we just get camped, you know. So oftentimes now you just need to commit like 2 or 3 people to just sit next to Artie, and you can rack up a lot of tickets and make sure that they're just completely useless for a whole game. And I think that's also something that might need to change if Artie actually wants to be something. Is that we'll have to find a way to um, counter things such as having a skirmishing force in the bushes in front of us that are just farming us all game, or um, being able to actually find something to hit like charges and stuff and blobs.
yeah. But I also think that there will be an increase in people who will try to try to be like sharpshooters or skirmishers. Sets of people who will try to specifically target a flag. In this way, it gives a huge disadvantage to a moving regiment or a charging regiment, which means they cannot get their people up faster, and the regiment that is defending with the flag would have a huge advantage over the
well,
other regiment without a flag.
well, you got to be careful with that because we say this a lot in our volley fires. You got to aim at the part of the line that you're a part of. So if you're on the right side, you got to aim at the right side of the enemy line. If they're coming at you in a line, just spread out, sprinting, and your whole volley aims at the flag, well, congratulations, you have killed 1, 2, 3, 4 of the enemy, but you all aimed at the same spot. And so, and if someone's behind them, they've picked the flag back up, and now you've got this line coming at you, and you don't have your loads. So
That is a
I
fair point.
yeah,
However,
if discipline is applied, I think flag preservation, because we mentioned earlier, like the flag is so much more important now. It's, I mean, granted, it was important with the 10-second spawn, but it's even more important now with the 5-second spawn. It keeps you in the fight. You don't gotta fall back, reform. You don't gotta watch time as closely. Um, whatever side, and this is I'm mostly referring to regimental play here, because in pubs, you do what you can. But in regimental play, I would whatever line's more disciplined with keeping that flag up, you're gonna have the advantage.
I've seen the new flag spawn play like a huge part whenever it like comes down to breaking, like for the attackers and stuff now. Instead of
Yeah.
them, like almost catching a point and getting wiped, like as if they just have their flags like hidden off about, 40, 50 yards away from the fight, they just keep flooding in there and they're just gonna wear the defenders down.
Yeah, you'll see
I
that a lot nowadays. They like to huddle. Like you'll see 4 flags all together, and it'll just be a steady stream. Instead of a steady stream from spawn, you've got a steady stream, 150 yards
Yeah,
close to the point.
I'm pretty sure Eagle was recording it. It was on Boulevard Heights Redoubt, and we got all the flags down in the bottom corner.
right.
And we were like so close to being wiped, but those flags it was like 4 people every 5 seconds, and we just flooded in there. It was ridiculous.
I do not
mm,
like the flag change whatsoever. I I mean, I don't know if I've maybe talked about it a lot, but a lot of these, the thing is, right, when you allow people to spawn in quicker, it doesn't punish you as an officer when you make dumb mistakes. Because if you
hmm
tried to take a dumb position, you would lose a bunch of guys in the past and be like, "Oh crap, I can't get it back," and so I leave. On top of that, too, but now you can just take any position you want and you'll get the guys back in right away. Um, on top of that, um, oh, I'm trying to think. I just blanked really hard the moment I started talking. I was thinking about all these things, and then yeah,
no.
Well, the officers may not feel their mistake in that moment, but if they think it's kind of like a clouded vision idea, like you're there and yeah, you're maintaining a group, but you are losing a considerable amount of number. Like you're using, if you lose 5 every 25 seconds, that's just not good. You need to move. They'll get their reprimand when they lose the game because they sat there and they lost too many tickets thinking that they were holding a position, well, but in reality they're just being supported by the 5-second spawn.
I mean,
all right,
a few officers could hold like positions near an enemy flag. Like let's say the attacking team loses their flag in a charge. The defending team would most likely, with this new update, probably camp that flag because without it, now the defending team has the bigger advantage because the attacking team cannot push out more men quickly, which makes it easier because it wastes time, which the defending team wants, and it gives the attacking team less time to work with and less movement to work with because they want to get their flag.
Well, I mean, but what else? I mean, not what else, but I mean, there are other options. But when you have these defending teams that are respawning just as quickly as you are, and that's where we're seeing this difference is like you see, like we said earlier, you see more people charging, you see more people pushing in, is because that's the only choice you have to wipe out a company. Like either they retreat or you get a couple good volleys in, you see their men go down, a little bit. If you're getting 6, 7 people a volley, then you're gonna slowly wear them out. But if you're getting less than 5 per volley, then they're gonna be just the same as when you first encountered them. Now either you're gonna farm tickets there, or you're gonna get a couple good volleys in, and you're gonna have to charge them out. Because if not, that defending company, that defending regiment's just gonna sit there. I'll be
right.
right back.
And I think that's kind of the thing with the flag bearer respawns too, and on top of the higher pop servers is that the only way to take ground in the game is by charging because you can't shoot anyone down anymore, as you just said. It's very hard to shoot somebody down, so you got to charge them out. And so
hmm
the changes with the flag bearer, respawn increases to the higher pop servers, it's really reducing the strategy that we have in War of Rights. It's reducing it down to blob charge because that's the only way you can gain significant ground. And I mean, on these really tiny maps, like Prygrist Mill. It's very impossible for the attackers to do anything because of these higher pop servers and these increased flag spawns, because it's a heck of a thing to cross that river on Prygrist Mill, for example.
What
But then trying to hold the other side, it's near impossible.
what was the casualties from that HRE event? Wasn't it like over 4,000 or something like that?
It was something up there like
It
that.
was, or no, it was like 30. I think it was like 3,200 or something like that. Yeah.
All I really remember is you guys crossing the river and decimating the Union on the flank.
Well,
But
and that's where the strategy comes in, because we were playing Progress Mill just the other day. I was in pubs on Progress Mill, and it was hard. Yeah, I agree. It was. We got across the river a couple of times, but the rebels definitely pushed us back, and they would come swarming in. But it was about the timing, that's what I like so much about all these changes, specifically with the flag, and also the amount of people playing, is it forces you to break the mold on what we understood originally. It's going to get a little more chaotic. It's going to get a little bit more messy for a while, but new strategies and new people in the community coming up with those strategies is gonna bloom out of the mess.
I mean, for the while that I've seen, the only thing I've seen is that can work is blob charging. Now with these high pop servers and quick flag respawns, you don't see any outmaneuvering anymore. All these small, medium-sized maps and skirmish, you really just have to blob charge or sit and shoot. Those are really the only two options, because your defenders can just defend the whole side of the map and they can't lose a position because they just respawn all the guys in right away. I genuinely think skirmish should be a 200 to 250 player mode. I think skirmish should be much tinier, where it's much more focused on the skill and the meta of War of Rights with the officers, because skirmish is such a complex game mode with a point of contention. All these
Mhm.
changes for contention conquest, I think, are great. Right, you can still outmaneuver, you can still do a lot of things. Contention conquest, great. Skirmish, though, I like the 10-second respawns in 200 to 250 players, but I know a lot of people disagree with that.
I I can agree with that just because the fact that like you mentioned it a minute ago, like uh, these officers, if they make a mistake, they don't really see the effects from it in these full servers like they did in like the smaller servers, because like you get your line wiped, you'd watch your you'd watch your morale stage drop by like an eighth or a quarter, and you'd be like, well, yeah, I've just fucked up.
Yeah.
But now it's like you get wiped or whatever, and it doesn't really make a huge dent, and so there's no real consequence to it. And I don't feel like people are really going to learn from making kind of goofy mistakes in a match.
Right.
I think
I get that. Those are good
I,
points.
I think that a huge difference that will make as well is also discipline, because with these huge pop servers, if there's no discipline, everything's going to be all over the place. And with discipline, when you're doing a charge, and if you can take out two people, that'd be perfect. If every person on the charging side could take out two people, you'd most likely wipe
Yeah,
the others.
Stab and
I
go,
think it
stab
I
and
think
go.
it also depends on like between like the regimental events and like a pub server, because I mean I know UEC, like the events I attend and stuff, they're pretty coordinated with their charges. But yeah, I don't play as much pubs as I used to, so can't really speak on that.
And like we mentioned earlier, I mean, with these regimental games, with these custom servers, you still have the option for the 10-second timer. So it's not
Do
like it's been fully stripped away.
the devs haven't taken that out yet?
No, for Blue and Gray on Fridays, we have a 10-second respawn timer. In Grand Campaign, we have a 5-second. So you still have that
Interesting.
option. Like I said, like you had that option, unless it's changed since the last time I paid
I
attention to
mean,
it. But
I know the devs learned about it a while ago when a private server was public and people were like, hey, what's going on with this? But I'm surprised they haven't taken it out. McPhail, were you going to say something? I saw you on mute.
I forget now. I'm sorry.
Are you good? But
Um, what is I just gotta ask this. What's everybody's opinions on like the contention and conquest, and like why don't people play that anymore, or like barely at all?
I personally really like it. I think I just like the bigger maps and the more maneuverability going on. I think, like Eagle said earlier, now with these bigger pop servers, the skirmish maps are too small, and so there's not a lot of maneuver warfare anymore. It's just blob charges and frontal assaults.
Oh, or I guess Eagle, do you think that
I
these
think
bigger server numbers will play into more people wanting to play those modes?
based off, I mean, including the higher server pop, the flag changes, and all of that, it's become much more enjoyable to watch Conquest and Contention, and I would assume it'd be the same for playing because it's like playing Colquitt's Defense on a 50 pop server. It's a really big map for a tiny group of guys, but as the server pop
Mhm.
increases and more guys are spawned in, fighting over the action on these big maps, I think it's great. On top of that, Conquest and Contention, unlike Skirmish, does not focus on kills and
Like it,
all of that. It's
yeah,
focused on the flags. And so it's much more enjoyable where a large group of guys can not so worry so much about them dying, but focus instead on the flags. Which again is why I don't like the higher pop servers in skirmish, because skirmish is a lot of it's just focused on the kills and how
and
you
kills,
outmaneuver and
yeah.
outplay your enemy, right? Not in contention conquest. So I think these changes are great for it.
Well, the difference is the amount of objectives. When you're in a skirmish, you have one objective, the point of contention, and either getting them into breaking or last stand, final push, so on and so forth. But when you got these contentions, when you got contention and conquest, you've got multiple points of objective, so your defenders can't clump up in one group and sit there and wait until a blob comes out to push them out. So I agree. I think it would work great for conquest and contention. I know in regimental play we have struggled to get to shift from skirmish to conquest and contention in the couple of regimental games I play in. So I haven't gotten to see how it affects those, but I know from my perspective in skirmishing, I don't think it's that bad of a change.
You're
But I
talking
would
the
say that
increased server pop.
increased server pop and the flag respawn. I mean, the increased server pop, I think, so long as the devs work out crunch the numbers with the percentage changes in ticket cost, more people the better. The way I see it, because I mean, you get closer to that immersion, to that realism, like I think Cloud was saying earlier. You got more people. You're in the fight more. And although in a umbrella sense, you may not feel the reprimand for each death. You're there. You're present.
Right. I know. I know. My personally, I think Conquest and Contention are built for the like more line battles, more immersion type, and skirmish should be
Hmm.
more the officer focused tactical thing. But I know the dev stated because I did a little post on the War of Rights Discord. The developers said their intention is to keep increasing the server pop for all the game modes. So they said if they could do 1,000, they'd do 1,000, and they didn't really talk about capping it any of the game modes anytime soon in terms of
Well,
server
I'll be
pop.
honest, like that I remember talking to him like the last time, and their biggest issue for not increasing it was like server performance or whatever.
Right,
But they must have something going because I haven't seen any issues with the new update.
right. I've
Hmm.
played in 400 player servers perfectly fine, so
Yeah.
I don't
I'm
know.
still.
Do you think
I'm,
they'll increase the skirmish map boundaries?
Now, I think that is, I've given it some thought, and initially was like, yeah, this would kind of fix the issue, right? Because now you can maneuver and the tactics are kind of back in. But the thing is, right, is if you increase the size of skirmish and you don't have a lot of players in your server, it's gonna feel dead, just like playing Conquest Contention on low pop. So I
Yeah.
think they need to keep it
Okay.
the same
Yeah.
size. Like
I don't know if they
I
could
like,
do it, but
yeah,
I don't
McPhail.
know if they could do it, but could they scale the size of the map based on how many people are in the server? I'm guessing the coding on that would probably be a little too complex.
I
So
think
you're
that'd be a
saying
little weird.
that would be weird because so you're saying like the more people are in a server, like the smaller the person is on the map.
No, no,
No,
the bigger the
the
boundaries
map
are.
boundaries just expand.
Oh, eh.
It
I
could
would
get kind
make
of cool because if you get like 50 more people in, suddenly like it becomes available to go around a certain way or something.
Well, I only brought that up because Killer was playing earlier, and as CSA on Hooker's Push, he was able to get into the corn.
I mean, huh?
And I don't know if that's ever been a thing before. I thought you couldn't get up to the fence
I
line.
don't I wouldn't know.
I think you've been able to in some spots get up to the fence, but not into the corn. Maybe was it on the very far right?
I think it was.
Because I think on the far right you can get like right up to the fence, but like you go out of bounds.
Well,
Like once you
he said he was up into the corn.
Huh. Maybe they changed it. I know they sometimes do it and they don't really make patch notes about it.
Togray just commented that they increased in this channel chat.
That
So
boundary was. So okay, yeah, like because he was streaming it too, and but I mean, I was working while I was, watching it, and he was definitely in the corner, and I was like, huh.
huh. Yeah, I wish the I guess this is kind of breaking off, but I wish the developers would be more transparent in what they were doing.
Yeah.
There's because I can understand not wanting to talk about everything you're doing because if something doesn't work out, a lot of people will get pissed. But as I have learned very quickly over these past couple years, is that people will always be pissed at you regardless of what you do. And so I think the better option is to kind of say, hey, here's what we're doing, and at least talk about it.
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah,
like to
but
see him
I
take more
mean,
feedback from the community because there's been some updates recently where the community has kind of pointed out holes before it even became an update. We've been like, I think, gosh, what was it? The update about not losing tickets if the person dies like within the spawn area or something like that. Wasn't that an update?
I I don't I don't think so.
first I've heard of it.
Yeah, I know
There was
X.
something
I know you
about
couldn't
that. I
gain
forget what
XP
game
and
mode it was
spawn.
on.
Huh.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. And there's some maps where like the defenders will be in their spawn area like the entire game. Like they shoot from
Yeah,
there.
turtling.
So it was a hole in their, and what they were doing with the update was you wouldn't earn XP for like a large portion of the people in the map.
That's a hard one.
And so like I know it's their game and they know it in and out, but like we've been playing this game for so long that I think now some of us probably know at least those little things more than they do even.
Yeah, I think the only time they have reversed something was the Vetricity update where they made everyone's XP level 0 to start regardless of how many hours you played. I think that's the only time they've listened. But oh yeah, there was one point I just remembered. It was brought up a while ago where I think Bones, you were mentioning how because of the quicker flag respawns and all of that, how there's more increased play and that's a good thing. Hell Let Loose is perfectly fine with you taking a billion years to spawn in, a billion years to run around the map and just die quickly. And they got a lot of players. I know War of Rights is a completely different style of game, Civil War based, but um, I don't think that is a good enough reason to say that. Sorry, the door. I'm dog sitting, and the dog started making noises at the door. Um, I don't think that it's a good enough reason to justify increasing spawns because Hell Let Loose is perfectly fine having the player sit and wait for a long time, at least in skirmish. So that's what I wanted to mention.
Well, and
I
I
think
mean the goal should not be having people running out, ramboing, getting killed. I mean, faster spawns. I feel like it's a double-edged sword. I mean, both sides have really good points, and it's not like I'm picking one side over the other. Like I said, I play 10-second respawn, I play 5-second respawn. I'm just trying to look at it from a pub's perspective. I mean, you got level ones jumping into the game, and I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's how do I word this? That is the preferred method for long term. I think in the short term, yeah, it's great that people are getting that experience. They're getting in and out of battle quickly. Maybe the officers aren't feeling the reprimand, but when you look at long term, what we're trying to do, I think how it helps is that it gets people more invested and more involved in War of Rights before they play the game for a week and put it down.
Right.
Until we get to the regimental play where now you have the 10-second timer, now you have the more disciplined officers, the more disciplined line,
Oh my goodness.
born, you feel the reflex. You get into the conquest and the contention play, and you get to experience all that. But when you first pick up the game, I mean, games like this are great. I love War of Rights, but games like this, you have like I said, I think closer to the beginning of the podcast, that the old heads will keep the game going, but if you don't bring in that new blood, you don't bring in the new ideas and the new strategies, it'll die out. over a long period of time, but it'll die out.
I mean, I completely agree with that point. With this new change of the 5 seconds, the less ticket loss, I think it slowly goads new players in, and as they're goaded in, they get more, they play more, and they get more experienced into the game. And then once they get into that regimental play, when they choose it for themselves, then you have the 10 seconds, as you said, and then you get to experience the the regimental play and how there's more discipline, et cetera, et cetera.
You can
Which
kind of
I
look
think
at
is
it like a difficulty setting.
yeah,
And
which I think it's great for new players, and it's great to increase the numbers in the War of Rights community.
I Part of me doesn't like the increased server pop. Um, Kind of tangenting server pop because War of Rights has steadily been growing over the years, and we'll see if these changes that the developers are making recently with the flag respawns like increases that trend. But the problem is we keep increasing the size of these servers, and we can never get to a point where War of Rights has 2 servers. Because my biggest issue, I think one of the bigger ones with 350 is that um, if we had, let's say, 2 skirmish servers at 200 or 250, we could fill those both up or nearly close to being full, each of them. And you could have multiple servers playing different game modes or different map packs, but we keep getting stuck with one server. That's another issue I had with the
Eagle,
Um,
sorry to interrupt you, Eagle, but somebody in the audience has a question.
right.
So,
I was gonna.
Kaiser had a question. He said in the chat, do you think that due to the shortened flag spawns timer, regiments are either too hesitant or arrogant in making plays without communicating with their teams first?
I'd say it's I think they are too arrogant because like it's mentioned before, the officers will not feel their blunders in their commanding as much as they would with the 10-second timer. Although it's not that much of a difference, it's still a difference, and I think, you know, they won't want to coordinate as much with their team because even if they just go alone, they won't make as much damage as they would if the respawn time was longer.
I agree with Ambush on that, but then you get into the problem that Eagle mentioned where you have to blob to get in.
And
Right.
that's the thing, people are
Yeah.
just gonna start flooding to do stuff. They're all gonna come in. It depends. Honestly, it depends on the situation. It depends on the game mode. It depends on the map. But I feel like most of the time, it'll make commanders a lot more arrogant in their commanding.
Do you think it would
And I
help for
th
them to add more flags and officers, like more
No,
regiments, basically?
no. No. So
Like raise the timer again, but add like 2 more companies or something.
so I when they increased from so if you don't know, originally they had 2 regiments in the game, but they gave each regiment 2 companies. So instead of having 2 officers overall, they have 4. I think there's already enough based off the times that I've seen public matches, because I think this is more to pubs than regimentals matches. But 4 officers, it's hard enough to get one cohesive plan. Someone is always not going to agree, go off do their own thing. And if you increase to have 6 or 8 officers, while it might make things a little more quote unquote coordinated, there's going to be more cooks in the kitchen. Everyone's going to disagree more, and it's just going to be way more of a mess. It's going to be worse cohesion, I guess, overall.
and, and
Guys
to
might
add
be
on to
spawning
that,
quicker. Sorry. Yeah.
I think that NCOs in pubs would become a lot more useful because now cohesion is going to be very much needed if you want to try and win a pub's game. Because again, there's going to be many respawns, there's going to be many more players, and not everyone is either going to listen to you or even going to hear you around all the chaos. So I think now NCOs are also going to become more well useful, especially loud NCOs.
Especially with the increased player count. Bigger teams
Um,
is where your NCOs come in.
Yeah, Kaiser had another question.
Yeah.
Real
He
quick,
asks,
real quick. Eagle,
Yeah.
I just before we get too far off, I would wanted to. You were talking about having 2 public servers.
Right.
I do want to give them a shout out since they're not here. Fifth Corps, they
Nations at
have
War.
put up another public server. Yeah, Nations at War, and they're trying. I guess they're trying to do what you're bringing up.
Right. I think
Now,
they're
if the
trying.
player base is there for it, who knows? But
They're
they're at
pretty
least
big.
attempting it.
And no, I appreciate what they're doing. I appreciate that there's more than one public officer Discord. Because one, it's more competition, meaning the
Mhm.
admins overall should get better. Because assuming public officer Discord wants players on their stuff, they will get better. Now I don't know how good they are. I don't actively play or listen to what they do, but my only complaint of public officer Discord is a lot of those people up there will, in an argument, will say, "Oh, you need to play pubs more to have a real position in this argument. You need to play more pubs. Your opinion doesn't matter." That's probably the only thing that annoys me about POD, but that's a different issue.
Yeah.
So
Um, so back to
yeah,
oh sorry. Back to one of the questions that the audience asks. He asked, do you think they are making the server sizes bigger to make room for possible larger maps in future updates, or is this a fool's dream for a Gettysburg campaign?
I don't
We can
know.
hope.
Yeah, go.
I was gonna say we can hope because
Yeah,
I
we
mean
can only
we've
hope.
already said it before. They're teeth horses, and if they bring horses in, they're gonna have to have bigger maps because what's the point of a horse if you reach one from one side of the map to the other in like under a minute?
Yeah.
Horses are going to be it's I think it's going to be real sad because they're going to release them and everyone's expectations are going to be destroyed because people
I
are
don't.
Yeah.
overhyping the crap out of it.
I don't think that anybody should expect to be able to use the horses other than the artillery. Like I believe that's the only real thing the horses are going to be used for.
Well, you see, I think that is a pro out of the horses.
Well, yeah, because
You'll
you can make it way
like
more mobile.
we were
Yeah.
talking about actually someone talked at the way beginning how maybe it would be fun to see more arty, in the front lines with their, double canister and stuff like that. That would be definitely a way for artillery to really be way more mobile and be a lot more useful in conquest and contention in the bigger maps because oftentimes arty in the big maps are in like really shitty positions and can't really do much.
I think it'd be really neat for officers and runners to get horses because you see a lot of
Yeah.
there's a big drawn line between people that use in-game communication between companies and people that use Steam chat during their regimental games.
I
And
hate Steam Chat.
I think it'd be really interesting. Yeah, and a lot of people have that opinion. Um, but when you're playing on these bigger maps and you have a
Hmm.
man on foot running across, the map to get a message across, I think that's where horse would be a perfect implement. But I think they need to implement bigger maps first before they implement horses.
I mean, they
I
could be
do
useful
have
on
I,
some of the conquest and contention maps, but not all of them for sure.
I do have one question about horses. If they are ever added, do you think that they would be able to jump over obstacles like fences?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would assume so.
I'm pretty positive they
I
posted.
hope.
There was that animation little GIF they posted, if I'm not mistaken,
I don't
of
know,
it
man. I think
jumping
those
over
things are pretty
something.
high.
Yeah, I don't know if horses will ever be put in. I would almost be fine if horses weren't put in outside of the exception of artillery, because they're
Yeah.
definitely not going to be in skirmish. What? Even on right now, if we have 400 player servers, what are you going to do? How many horses are you going to give each team? Like what, 5 to 10? Surely you're not going to let half the team or
I
even a
think they would
fourth.
almost need to make like a whole new game mode to
And there was
incorporate
mention of that.
horses,
There was rumor of that they'd make their own horse game mode, which I don't
I
like
do
a
believe will happen.
cavalry
But
I
battle kind of thing or
right,
whatever you want
See,
to call
I
it.
think that's a downhill. I think that's a downhill option for them. I don't think you need to be making different game modes to
I think you
to
just need
include.
bigger maps for that, honestly.
Yeah,
But
and that's where I agree. I think bigger maps first, and then introduce horses if you're going to. But you see stuff like this in Chivalry 2, where they started including all of these different game modes, and that's the only new flavor that they bring to the game is these new game modes to accommodate stuff that they've added to the game. I don't think that's a good outcome for War of Rights because then you split the community.
but I don't For the horses, I don't even think that they're gonna be such a huge thing when it comes to battle because in taking into consideration the new changes with the 5 second flag, etc., if you're gonna go skirmish with a horse, let's say that you go and you want to go skirmish and take pot shots at a regiment, it isn't gonna do much because they're just gonna respawn, continue
Well,
moving, and it'll just do nothing in the long term of the game.
well, the point is to harass the enemy. It's the point is to move around, hit them a bit, run away, do that and repeat. Distract them, catch them off guard. When someone respawns, you got to remember they load in with nothing. You know, so
That's a good point.
if you wipe an entire regiment and they respawn, that will be just a freshly respawned, no Baos, no load, no nothing. So it can give, some advantage, especially when you're about to charge in. Let's say cavalry charge in before the infantry. Let's say they kill all those people. Those are all people that have to put their Baos. They have to get a load before they can actually join in the fighting, or they just start hitting people with their gun instead.
That is actually a good point, and I think I do have another question. If you were to kill a cavalryman, like let's say you kill their horse, I do wonder how many tickets would that cost?
Who knows?
I don't
I
And
know.
think
also,
they'll
would they
always be
have
on
a different
skirmish.
respawn time?
I just
That's
want
that's a lot.
I just want Union to have all horses on Burnside's bridge or Confederates on Rivers Crossing. McPhail, did you want to say something? See you on mute.
I was just gonna say it'd be funny to see a horse and a rider spawn on the flag.
Yeah, it's curious. Like, would there be like a specific spot on the map where the horse reinforcements spawn, or would horses spawn on flag? And would their spawn
Yeah.
time be different?
There's no
It's
shot they
to
could spawn
consider.
on flag. Maybe without a horse, but
Yeah, I
I
feel
don't
like
know.
you'd
It's
have
gonna be
to.
at spawn probably.
And
Yeah.
then what happens when the
Something to
flag
think
goes
about.
down and somebody from a cav unit picks up an infantry flag? Can they now wield the infantry flag on horseback? Or do they have to have an
Uh,
infantryman?
And then chuck the
And then if an
flag as a
infantryman
spear.
picks up a cavalry flag, does a horse just simply appear under them?
I love how every war rights conversation devolves to the horse conversation.
It really
uh,
is.
Tall Gray
It
I
had
does.
a
It does. It really
Tall
does.
Gray had a good point because he said, everything is based around the 1862, the Maryland campaign.
right.
Do you think we'll see Shepherdstown as an official map pack?
I don't get. Okay, all I know is since I've playing the game, which is 2020, all I've heard is Shepherdstown's going to be released. I visited it real life a couple weeks ago. It is such a tiny freaking battlefield. I don't know why it's not in. And there's a lot of things the devs work on that they don't talk about that I think is great and all, like fall damage and drowning, but like work on the things that you talked about and things to that are quick and easy to improve the game, like making more maps quickly or making Shepherdstown. Right?
How
We have three whole map packs, and there's a lot more areas of the map that are just unused that we could use to make
Yeah, I was
maps
gonna
very quickly.
say like I I didn't play the game like whenever it first released. Did it release with all the maps we currently have for
No, it
Skirmish?
was just drill camp to start.
After a
Oh,
while.
and so they slowly. So I wonder
Yeah.
what's stopping them from doing Shepherdstown, even if it's just like 2 or 3 maps. Like people would love it.
I know there was one developer who left due to creative differences. I think he was the map maker,
Uh,
Hankel. I don't know the exact name, but
Why would
yeah,
they hold that back though? Why would they hold back the map creation?
they
I
may not have
don't
somebody
know.
that can do it now.
Well, I know people have always asked to help them out, but they've always said no, and they haven't really grown their team either, which is a different topic in and of itself. But I mean, they clearly have a vision. They want to stick to that vision. They don't really want anyone else coming in and influencing that unless their whole community hates the decision. But yeah, McPhail.
Well,
There was another Civil War game that had a map editor, and maps were made very quickly. Like when players could make them, they were high quality maps and they were made extremely quickly.
That's
yeah.
what kept.
Speaking of, did they confirm? Is that still gonna come out? The map editor?
It's for Bekoff, it's always been out.
No,
Oh, the
no. I
War of
mean,
Rights.
for War of
Oh,
Rights.
they
That could
mentioned
breathe a
it.
lot of life into the game.
that's the thing. When is it going to get done? They talk about all these grand things, and then we never see anything. I don't know.
Because I guarantee
I mean, I
that
mean,
that in and of
to-
itself, a map editor you would see a lot of players join this game.
Oh yeah, and the
yeah,
regimental would go crazy with all the historical
yeah,
reenactment.
but it
Especially if
would,
the
but
Gettysburg campaign gets made, because it is just such, people who don't know a lot about the Civil War. That's
Yeah,
their
they hear Gettysburg. Yeah, that's what everybody thinks of when they think Civil War.
I got one comment
but the
from a
problem.
video saying I will not buy the game until Gettysburg's released.
I've
Well, there
had
you go.
new recruits that were recruiting the regiment, and they're like, "So how do I play the Gettysburg maps?" And we're like, "There it is in the game." And they're like, "What? It's a Civil War game with no Gettysburg?"
It's just the
I think the
devs playing
problem.
as themselves at this point.
I think the problem is that the devs promise a lot of things, but they're never really transparent about it. It's more just obscure. They 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 say it, but they don't really show
Well, I
anything
think it's
for it.
because they know it's because they know what we want, and if
Do
they
they?
know they can't deliver it yet, I would hope so. I would hope so.
Because
I mean at the very least
sorry.
they know what we want and they're just not delivering. I don't know why I can't speak from their shoes, but I definitely think they need to come around or they're gonna lose the community because right now a lot of this community is very dedicated. And if they don't, they got to figure something out.
Right. I just want to know more about. Okay, I know there's a lot of things they want to work on and are probably working on, but I just want to see progress made with it and say why you
Roadmap.
made the decisions that you did. Yeah, an updated roadmap, but more of like why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? I just want to know why. It's like
Yeah.
even if you test something out and you think it's a bad idea, I just want to know why. I know some people might get mad, but people are getting mad by you being quiet. I guess regardless, people are going to be mad, but they're sticking to their guns and they've really stuck to that the whole time. So,
Speaking of that, Tall Gray's comment about the zombie mode, they were kind of transparent about that the whole zombie mode was testing AI for the horses, among other things.
huh.
Which
I
was
was
kind
not
of
there for that.
interesting. I do remember. Yeah, I forget which dev it was in the server talking about it, but I do remember that because it was like the
Yeah,
first night it premiered.
is that the only way you heard about it though? Was from a dev in chat in a game?
Yeah.
Because I think that's what Eagle's saying is like if you would tell us, hey, we're doing the zombies because we want to test AI for horses, we'd be
Yeah,
more.
it was no official like, patch notes or anything like that. It's just, speaking to people.
We asked for all this stuff and then they pop a zombie mode and yeah, it was fun, but it's not what the community is asking
Hmm.
for.
Like this community tool, it looks really cool. I love stats, but like that's not going to enhance my gameplay experience at all. And who
No.
knows? I know they brought Mulix on, I'm pretty sure, just to help with
Yeah.
that because he made the PA army. But I don't
Dude,
know.
that app he made was so cool.
It is. I think just a lot of the decisions made are rubbing me the wrong way. But that's just my take. I don't have a very unique one. But cool. We're getting to that point. I guess, does anyone have any closing thoughts before we call it a night here?
I do.
All right.
I think
Uh,
that the changes that we talked about in the start of this podcast, I think that it will change up a lot of things, but I think it will change a lot of things for the better in War of Rights and its community.
All right.
At
I
least the
just want to
devs.
see, yeah, I just want
Yeah,
to see the
yeah, go
community.
ahead, go ahead.
I just want to see the community keep growing. I don't really, there's been points I thought, the game might get stale and kind of fall off, but it seems like it's kind of starting to pick up a little bit more, and I just hope it keeps up that way, throughout the rest of this year and going into next year.
I agree with my final comment is that I agree with Pod. I think these changes are breathing new life into the game, and although they bring their own fair share of struggles and changes to what we believe War of Rights should be, um, I also agree with Cloud though. I mean, even if it's a bad change, it's a change nonetheless. Like as long as we don't sit still, as long as the devs don't sit on their hands and don't give us any updates at all, I'm happy. We can work with that. We can bring new people in. I mean, we may. I don't think we should get set in any one way. It's unlike the Civil War. War of Rights ain't gonna end anytime soon. Like the Civil War started and ended a certain way. We have the opportunity to bring changes to the outcome, you know? So I think any change is good change, will bring new life and keep the War of Rights community alive.
think
No.
I think oh
For the
sorry.
cheese.
Do you wanna? I think
Um,
that this just goes to show how important dev to community relationships are. I mean, I can't think of any other game where the devs are just completely dead and there's still a thriving community except Team Fortress 2, but that's the only exception I've seen so far.
And that one's slowly dying out too, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, but still a huge. I mean, lately they did do that bot killing spree, so community's quite alive right now, but we'll see how long that lasts.
I will say that does kind of speak a testimony to the community, right? Because I think, again, the only reason why I come back to this game is because of the people here. Like, if I didn't have
Yes,
the people
the
here, I would not be
community.
playing the game.
On
Exactly.
God.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the community, the game wouldn't be what it is.
So based on that
Regardless if you
comment,
like, regardless
based
if
on
you
that
like or
comment, based on that comment alone, developers should just go back to drill camp and we can all sit and talk in a server. Anyways, that's a joke. Any other closing thoughts?
I think we're going to be seeing in the near future a bit of development in the ways that officers are going to do strategy and how our events develop in terms of, you got the server cap, we'll see uh, how that goes. You got the timer, we'll see how that goes. So we're going to see a bit of change in War of Rights, I think, in the near future with all the aspects of battles and stuff like that. But yeah.
McPhail.
McPhail, you got anything?
I want to see Sevi talk about Artie now that we've established that
Oh
Artie
my,
is worse.
counter battery. Yay! Anyways, yeah, that's pretty much it. I'd like to thank everyone for coming on here. I think there was a good amount of things talked about. We'll try to keep this podcast cooking bi-weekly, monthly, whatever schedule seems fit. But this was a great start. Again, if you want to check out everyone's socials, they'll be in the description. If you want to support the channel, like, comment, share, subscribe. The Patreon, merch, and Discord's in the description. But nonetheless, we appreciate you watching, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. See you in the next one.